Hi, heroes. This is Stan Lee coming at you. Want you to know, Marvel has always been and always will be a reflection of the world right outside our window. That world may change and evolve, but the one thing that will never change is the way we tell our stories of heroism. Those stories have room for everyone, regardless of their race, gender, religion, or color of their skin. The only things we don't have room for are hatred, intolerance, and bigotry. That man next to you, he's your brother. That woman over there, she's your sister. And that kid walking by, hey, who knows? He may have the proportionate strength of a spider. We're all part of one big family, the human family, and we all come together in the body of Marvel. And you're part of that family. You're part of the Marvel universe that moves ever upward and onward to greater glory. In other words, EXCELSIOR!
Hey everybody, welcome to Grimsforge Gaming. Today we are going to cover my Stan Lee EXCELSIOR build. And as a quick note, this build is a work in progress, okay? So if you are interested in keeping tabs on this build, just comment in the section below and I will let you know how the build is unfolding. I'll do videos kind of showing where this is at. The thought process on the build is this: the reason I wanted to get it out early, because it is a work in progress and it's not complete, is today's day and age right now. We've got COVID-19 going on still, and we have a lot of rioting across the world, or across the US at any rate. And I think Stan Lee's message of we are all co-travelers on this spaceship called Earth, and that we need to respect and care for and love each other is a very important and powerful message. And actually the reason why I wanted to get this build out early, I thought timing was very important on getting this build out because of that message. And I think he was a very, obviously a special man to a lot of people, and his message is very powerful. Anyways, here we are, Stan Lee EXCELSIOR build. Jumping right into the build, the very first thing that I want to point out is that we have the torque of tonal constancy. So we have this mythic item here, and you can see that we've got it with the multi-effect or prismatic recovery enchant on it. And we have the triune, it comes actually with the triune trait on it. But the important thing to look at this is while your stamina is less than 50%, increase your magic recovery by 450. And while your magic is less than 50%, increase your stamina by 450. This mythic item kind of sums up what this build is about. This build is about recoveries, because another content creator, Is There No One Else, just did a video on this, and I was super excited to see this because I knew that this to be true. I just didn't know the math of it. And Is There No One Else actually went in and he said, I'll even link that video in the descriptions below for you guys so you can watch the video. He said, I'm tracking what my healing was before Greymoor, and I'm tracking what it is now, and it's closer to a 20% deficit. Okay, it's close to 20%. It's not 10%, it's closer to 20% weaker on self-heals and healing in general and PvP through Battle Spirit. And I think that's important to know. And so my thought process on this was, if we were just going to take a 10% hit, how, as a support healer / tank, whatever we're going to be in battlegrounds, how are we going to stand the time, stand the line, toe the line? How are we going to stay front line? I don't need to just keep myself alive. I need to keep 3 other people on my team alive. And the only way you're going to do that is through max stats and recoveries, right? That's the only way. And if we're closer to a 20% healing debuff, that's scary. And so, anyways, this mythic item fit the bill. And let's jump into the other sets here. I'll show you how they all work together, and then I'll show you an image of what it looks like when you run the resources dry on the build. And the reason I'm going to show you an image as opposed to doing it, this is my second take on doing this video because I tried to actually demonstrate it, and this build works so well that I don't stay under 50% long enough for you guys to even see what the max stats are, if that makes sense. This build does not stay dry long at all. You can stay in the fight and stay super active. Anyways, let's look at it. And our first set, this is only one piece right now because of the way the build works with our mythic item, and we're running 2 5-piece simultaneously. So we're running Dama House because we just want the max stats. We want max stat stamina and max Magicka. And you can see we have multi-effect or the prismatic enchant on this. We have prismatic enchants on everything because we're looking for max stats. The next set that we are running is Visteria's Tutelage, and this fits the build theme and what I was trying to do perfect. Max stamina, max health, max Magicka, magic recovery, stamina recovery, and then when you resurrect an ally, you and your ally gain 258 weapon or spell damage and 10% cost reduction to non-ultimate abilities for 10 seconds. And so you get basically this steroid if I can get people up during a fight. Templars come with in their kit some res speed, and so that was nice. The next set that we paired this with is Amber Plasm. Amber Plasm's going to give me a line of max Magicka, some spell crit, some spell damage, and then look at those recoveries: magic recovery, stamina recovery, and health recovery. And so when we look at things, I'm going to show you unbuffed our stats. We're completely unbuffed right now, but max Magicka at 32,000, max health at just under 30,000, our max stamina at 22, just under 23,000, and our recoveries. These recoveries are not with a potion or with the torque in effect, and I will share that image right now. And so if you could see that these recoveries, we just have an amazing line of magic recovery, health recovery, and stamina recovery. Anyways, jumping back into the build here, see our spell damage is on the low, but we're not here for spell damage. We're not here to kill people, I should say. And so if your thought process on this going into Battlegrounds is I'm going to run up as many kills as I can, this isn't the build for you. This is a support frontline tank build, right? Absorb damage, keep your team alive, and keep pushing the line. Okay, so our spell resistance unbuffed is at 28,000, and our physical resistance is at 25,000, and our crit resistance is at 2,500. And so real quickly, we're just going to buff up here real quick. And when we look at this, you can see our resistances. Our spell resistance is at 26,000, so we are over cap, and our physical resistance is just a hair under cap by 700 points. And so we are very beefy on this build, and our recoveries are very impressive, and we got great max stats on this build. Okay, jumping into the abilities here. I needed a hard CC on the build, and because we are very magic heavy on this build, magic use heavy on this build, I felt like a CC and the stamina line would be good. So you could either run with Javelin or you could run with Shield Assault on your sword and board. And I felt like Shield Assault was the better way to go, the better play for me, because I actually use this to get out of trouble from time to time. So let's say I've got 2 people on me and they're trying to put damage into me, and then I got a third running up or a third fighting over away from me. Anyways, we have a third fighting away from us. I will actually gap close to them, and that will get me away from the other 2. And then a lot of people are not running gap closers right now, so then they have to turn around and run over to me. If I'm their primary target and they want to kill me, they got to come to me. So I'll use the gap closer in that fashion to kind of move around the battlefield. We do have another form of mobility on this too, because Templars are typically known as a slow class. We are not a werewolf or a vampire, so that's something to note as well. So we do not have access to mist form. So Anyways, Shield Assault. It fit exactly what I was looking for. It comes with a hard CC and came with a form of mobility for me. And then Puncturing Sweeps, obviously, if you're a Magicka Templar, this needs to find your way into your kit somewhere, right? And this is a conal effect in front of you. I'm sure everybody's seen that before. Anyways, our next ability is Purifying Light. And if I got to stand and fight with one person, where I can't disengage with one person and it's just the two of us, I'll make sure that I build my house, which is going to be our ritual retribution and our channeled focus. We'll build our Templar house. We're going to put some um, our damage modifier onto them, and we're going to hard CC them and put damage into them. And I don't necessarily need an execute on this build. It's not that we're overflowing with spell damage or the ability to kill people, but this is a very sneaky way to burst someone down or get them low. And as long as I keep this on them, I know that I at least have a damage multiplier coming in. And even as low as the spell damage is on this, like I said, I don't have a problem killing people with this build. So a couple things about the build to know too while we're looking at this. Just leveling this build, I knew that it was going to be a powerful build. At level 30, I went to the middle of Imperial City. I pulled all three portals for Molag Bal simultaneously and soloed them on this build at level 30. And while I'm doing that, a DC comes up and tries to kill me, and he ends up dying for it. And I think it would have been a combination of he just simply couldn't kill me, and I was putting damage into him, and all the chaos that I was standing in the middle of, he could not handle. And so this build is extremely durable, and it can last in extended fights for sure. But anyway, so that is one story and Stan Lee's adventures already on this Excelsior build while he was just leveling, right? And that's very cool. And another story as well. While I was leveling this build in the sewers, I was on between level 30 and 40, and a Grand Overlord 80 Nightblade tried ganking me, and I just held block with my sword and board for a while and did bash to let them know, hey, I'm not trying to fight right now, and they just kept trying to kill me. And so I did exactly what we were talking about. I built my house. I put power of the light on them. I stunned them and put some puncturing sweeps into them. Hit them with a crescent sweep, and they ended up dying. They just couldn't get out from in front of me, and they ate so much damage and they died. And shortly after that, I get a message from them with just like what just happened, and my simple response was Excelsior. And so, anyways, he followed up with a message and said, look, I've killed 33 people today already, and I don't know how some lowbie like you killed me. He was not happy about it. Anyways, in just a short while of leveling, I've had some pretty amazing experiences with this Excelsior build. I can tell you it's very powerful. So we've went through our abilities real quick. We've got a hard CC and a form of mobility with shielded assault. Puncturing sweeps are primary spammable and puts damage into people and applies a slow. You can see our movement speed of the first person we're hitting is slowed by 40%, so it's hard to get away from this. Our damage multiplier, and this comes with a little bit of a hot on it, or a heal over time that drops on the ground after it expires. And then we have Ritual of Retribution. This is going to have a heal over time, and this is our Purify or our Cleanse. Gets the bad stuff off of us. So if a Magicka DK puts their dots on us, I just make sure we cleanse them, and then the only damage that they could put into us is going to be their whips and whatever they muster. You just stay heavy on this, and it keeps the dots off of you. And our channeled focus here, I think it's important to know that while we're standing in this, we're going to get roughly 500 extra Magicka coming in. We have an extra just under 500 magic regen coming in when we're standing, or when we have this down. And so our magic recovery stats, recoveries that you see, this helps immensely. Right now we're running Crescent Sweep, and I might stick with that, or I might actually go with the Sword and Board alt spell wall once we unlock that. And like I said, this is very much a we're in the process of adding this. I have next to no sky shards on this build. We've put this build together and we've released it very early just because of the message for Stan Lee and what he stood for. And anyways, keep a tab on this build if you're interested in a Templar frontliner. So because we are missing a lot of passives and we're still as powerful as we are. Let's look on the back bar here. We are running Radiating Regeneration, and right now, you know, we're still leveling everything, so keep that in mind. But we're looking at just under 16k heals going out, and it's going to 3 people nearby. We're running Honor the Dead, and this is our burst heal, and it's going to recover some Magicka, which I think is important. Kind of fits a theme of recovery and staying in the fight. And we're running Blessing of Restoration, and I felt like Blessing of Restoration was the better play for me because it's a pretty good burst heal, number one, and then adding Minor Resolve, increasing your allies' physical and spell resistance is probably pretty important to everybody. I felt like if I went the other way with Combat Prayer, a lot of people already have access to Minor Berserk, and so I didn't need to double up on that buff that they most likely already have through Camo Hunter or Slime Crawl or whatever abilities that they're running. I think adding to their resistances and helping me keep them alive was the better way to go. We're running Illustrious Healing too. This is our ground healing over time, and so we have a handful of heal over time, a handful of burst heals, and we are very tanky. Here's our form of mobility. We're running Race Against Time. I rarely run with this morph. I normally run with Channeled Acceleration. However, Race Against Time fit the build. Number one, we could afford the Magicka cost. We could spam it because of the way this build is set up. I could spam this over and over again and we would probably never run dry. So staying ahead of people isn't really a problem unless they're using the Ring of Eternal Hunt, and they'll keep up with me. The other nice thing about this is activating this ability removes all snares and immobilizations from you and grants you immunity for 2 seconds. So I could just stay on this and continue to spam this to cleanse or purify myself of those, but this actually gives me major expedition and takes care of that problem for 2 seconds. So sometimes they're not in battlegrounds. Sometimes they have not called me out as the primary target. They're just attacking me because I'm the closest person to them, right? And so we just create some space between them and me, and maybe run through multiple fights or start kiting them. And then we're super beefy and we have heals coming in, and they realize we're not going to get anywhere with trying to kill this guy because he understands how to kite. I can't put enough burst damage into him to kill him, and now all of a sudden someone else is attacking them, and you know, the next shiny thing comes around and their attention is moved on. Now the few times where I am targeted and they call me out, like that's the healer, we have to take him out. You know, that's when the build really shines because we could take a really good beating on this build. Right now we're running Remembrance, and I'm going to gain major protection, reducing my damage while I'm casting this for 10 seconds. So I think that's important to know. This is a really nice heal. However, when I finally unlock the Resto Staff Ultimate, I will be switching to that. The reason being is you have to be stationary to cast this, and you're basically a bug zapper, right? When you're standing there casting this, in the middle of a fight, what happens? At least 2 or 3 other people in this big team fight decide there's the Templar, there's the healer, and they start stacking up on you, right? I don't want that. I don't want to draw attention to myself anymore. I want to move between the lines. I want to hold the front line. I don't want everybody on the front line attacking me because in that moment I have to focus on keeping myself up, and I have to rely on my team's ability to close the fight out. I need to rely on my team's ability to seal the kills, right, to get these people off me. And sometimes that's just not the case right now, and they're not going to be able to do that. Their skill set's not there or whatever. And so, or we're running into just really impressive other players that understand how to play. And so with Remembrance forcing me to be stationary, I don't think that's the play. Whereas if you go to the Resto staff and look at this, we're only level 42. Missing passives. We'll get there. But when you run with this ultimate and then you run with the Life Giver ultimate, you're going to get this ability, and will ultimately unlock this and morph it to one of the probably Steadfast Ward or whatever. But when you get Life Giver ultimate, Resto Staff ultimate, not only is it an instant cast, it's only 122 ultimate. So that's super impressive. But you get all three of these with Life Giver, and and you can just hit it on the run. And so that's going to be the play for me. I think this bar right here, we're going to run with the Sword and Board ultimate, and while the Sword and Board spell wall is running, we're standing in the middle of the fight. If people are wasting their time trying to kill me, my team is in the meantime killing them. And because of where the recoveries are at, I don't just need to stand there and be without offense. I can hit spell wall and turn around and go right after them too, right? Add to the pressure, and hopefully they continue to try and kill me. Meanwhile, they're getting killed themselves. So you notice that we do not have a form of we do not have a spell damage buff on this, and I'm going to look into it and I'm going to compare the difference in heals just by adding structured entry or degeneration. That's the one that's going to give me the major sorcery, the 20% additional spell damage, and we'll get a damage over time from that too. So we'll play around with that and see if that helps increase our heals by enough to figure out where we're going to add it into the build. If not, I can always run with some special potions. Right now we're running with tripods, which makes a lot of sense for us. But if after testing that it is a dramatic change in healing going out, then we'll throw that on there. I'm just not sure about that yet and where we stand with Greymore and the changes for heals. So anyways, we have looked at the abilities, we've looked at the gear, and I want you to check out our Mundus. We are running the Ritual, and we are running Bewitched Sugar Skulls to assist with our max stats, and then our health recovery. That's just under 400 health recovery there to give us really nice stats. I can't stress enough how tanky this feels and how durable, and the fact that you have over 2k recoveries when everything's firing. And like I said, I just couldn't emulate it quick enough to show you what stats we hit. I don't stay under 50% long at all, and I just think it's super impressive. Now, in a no CP situation, we're going to lose roughly 20% recoveries across the board. You'll get to see him in stressful situation actually operate at 50 or under a little bit more regularly, and this build is actually built for it with no CPBGs in mind, right? So here in Imperial City, CP Imperial City, like it's just going to be over the top recoveries and over the top sustain and bulkiness. Let's go ahead and jump into, we've looked at our food in Mundus, and we talked about what changes we might make, and looking at it, we did do the prismatic enchants on all the jewelry here, and right now I am running sharpened on my sword and board, and then we're running impenetrable on this back bar, and I had a sharpened resto staff, which I want to change this to powered, so that way we get an extra 8% healing on our back bar just from having that, to pair that along with the ritual, so an extra 10% healing, and then we get a lot of class passives and everything. As far as class passives go, I can tell you what we plan on doing with them. Like I said, I've leveled this guy completely, almost completely in Imperial City. And so we need to get out into the world, get some sky shards above and beyond what's down here in Imperial City. But you're going to want all your class passives as you go. Grab all those. Sword and Board, you're going to want all those passives, and like I said, we're going to end up getting Shield Wall and then go the Spell Wall route, and we're going to use that as a regular option for us, and we're going to get the Resto Staff Ultimate, and we're going to run Life Giver, which is going to give us this, this, and this once we unlock this and morph it. And you want all your Resto Staff, and under light armor, because we are running, I believe, let's double check here. Yeah, so we're running a 5-2 setup. We're 5 heavy, 2 light, and I think the 2 light was needed so that way we could hit these first 3 categories. So you can see that snares are going to become less effective once we unlock that, and we have 8% additional magic recovery coming in, and we have a little bit of extra spell resistance, which pairs nicely with Templar spell resistance. And then we have all the heavy armor passives because we are hitting a 5-piece bonus on that. And nothing fighter guild ability, but if you spend a lot of time down in Imperial City, you might want to pick up Banish the Wicked, so that way you gain additional ultimate killing undead, Daedra, and werewolf, and or just doing BGs in general. We're going to see werewolves and vampires. So Mage's Guild, you will want to get some of these passives, and then like I said, I'm going to test the degeneration and see if it's worthwhile to have on this frontline tank healer support build. Psijic Order, we're going to continue to work with this, and I might play around with Mend Wounds and then some of the morphs to that and see how that comes into play with the healing situation. So as is there no one else in the video that he put out, how do these heals stack up, and how are these heals working with that channeled effect if you kind of pick your hero and just attach yourself to them? You're going to want all these passives, and like I said, once I get Concentrated Barrier, I'm going to end up having this shield as I hold block, and you know, when we're casting a Psijic Order ability, we'll have major protection, which this is probably going to be the only ability that we're going to be casting unless we go this route, and it's a channeled effect. So I want to see how that works. You know, while you are casting or channeling a Psijic Order ability, you gain major protection. So if the whole time I'm attached to somebody and healing them, I have major protection, that's a little scary. And so we're going to play around with that and see if we can make this class even beefier, okay? Even tankier. And we'll just have to see how strong those heals are. So, like I said, I have not done hardly anything. I think I did one dungeon in this guy as the Undaunted. Yeah, and so we haven't done anything, but our stats are only going to go up as we get both of these and we start doing dungeons, so watch for that. And we do not have any of the passives here for assault or support. And another thing is barrier, concentrated barrier. Some people said, hey, that had run around with me and seen the build in action while I was leveling it, and they're like, I can't wait to see that build. They they had recommended, you know, concentrated barrier might be a play that you want to look at, and so we're going to explore that. As far as racial passives, get all your racial passives, and we are a Nord, and so the way we hit our physical and spell caps right now is through this rugged passive of Nord. It's basically an extra 4,000 spell and physical resistance. Stalwart gives us an extra line of stamina, which is great because we can block cast most of the abilities that we do, and when we take damage we generate ultimate, which is great. And we have some additional health and cold resistance, which is going to help us with the snares and slows. So let's jump into the CP here real quick. If you are going to run Imperial City, I can tell you Mid-Year Mayhem's coming up, and I look forward to running this with a group of people and kind of seeing what we run into. Anyways, CP. Starting with the Apprentice, first thing we have is increase your healing done by 13%. So we dropped 64 points into this. I'd like to thank one of my subscribers, actually. He had mentioned, for me, I had set 60 as just my hard cap or soft capped on abilities, and the thought process was like, hey, it's getting really expensive to drop any more points into these. I'm just going to put 60 in it, and we're going to call it a day. And he said, hey, you know, if you drop like one more point in that field, you would actually hit 21% and you wouldn't lose, a couple points, right? Because it scales down to the next full percent. And so he said, why don't you just find a way to round those up to get them close to a nice full percentage? And so that's what we did. He helped me optimize or clean up my CP, and I want to thank him for that. So blessed, 13%. It's 64 points into that. We got 61 points into Elfborn, which is going to increase our critical damage done, but more importantly, our critical healing done. And we've got 64 points into Elemental Export, which is going to increase our magic damage and flame damage mostly on this build. And we've got 20 points into Spell Erosion for an extra 1900 pen. And the thing about it is, like I said, I don't think we're going to be killing a lot of people, but we're going to need a little bit of penetration to at least show them, like, hey, I'm not the guy, don't mess with me. I have the recoveries and the durability to kill you. If you stand here, I'll just simply outlast you. Excelsior, right? So Master at Arms, we've got 61 points into that, puts us at a nice 21% increase to our direct damage. That's important because Puncturing Sweep is now listed as direct damage, and so our primary spammable benefits by 21%. We have nothing in the ritual, and we've got 61 points in Ironclad, so it gives us a 21% increase to direct damage taken. That's very important because a lot of the biggest hits in the game are going to be considered direct damage, the abilities that are really going to chunk off large portions of life, and so you want to go heavy into Ironclad. We've got 60 points into Spell Shield, gives us an extra 4,400 spell resistance. We might be able to come off this just a little bit because we're over cap in CP Imperial City. However, when CP is not counted for in BGs, that doesn't really matter. So we're actually, I think, right at or just under cap. So I have 25 points into Hardy. This is just a extra point dump, so that way if some physical damage gets up on me, we have an answer to them. We've got 60 points into Armor Focus, and this is going to give us an extra 4,400 physical resistance, and we've got 64 points for an extra 13% into Healing Received. Also, to go back on this, a lot of people, this turns a lot of heads. They're like, why do you not have 60 and 60 or 70 and 70 or whatever into this, to get the Unchained passives? Number one, if somebody's going to CC me, I'll deal with that when it happens. We don't have a lot of stamina costing abilities, so it's not that important to us, to be honest. But if you want to know how I'm hitting my resistances, or getting close to resistance cap or exceeding resistance cap, this is how I do it. I go with whatever armor focus, right? So we're 5-piece heavy armor, and I dump 60 into that for an extra 4,400. And then I always make sure that I put 60 into Spell Shield. That's an extra 4,400 resistances, right, across the board. I would rather have max stat resistances instead of dumping points into this. Like if I put another 25 points into this because of diminishing returns or diminishing gains, I'll cut off 10%, we'll say. And if I have a 10,000 physical damage ability coming in, and I'm going to shave 10% off of it, I shaved off 1,000 damage of that. That's just simply not worth it to me to spend 50 points here, right? It's not worth it to me. So I would rather go with the armor focus, whatever it is, whether it's light, medium, or heavy, hit that armor focus and hit the spell shield focus. So anyways, that's my thought process on this, and it's been working out really well, and I do this across all my builds. So I have 61 points into Warlord, and that's going to reduce my break free effort by 21%. We are going to be CC'd, and we will need to break free, so do not skip out on that. We've got 64 points into Mooncalf, gives us a nice 13% stamina recovery. 64 points into Arcanus for a 13% increase there as well. And we have 20 points into health recovery for an extra 5%. And we've got 61 points into Shadow Ward, so it increases our blocking by 21%, which is important because almost all of our abilities are block cast capable. And so having that 22,000 stamina allows us to block a lot on this build. And then once we get below 50% here in stamina, we know that our magic recoveries just start skyrocketing too. And so if we're low in stamina, it means that we're block casting a lot or we're taking a lot of damage, right? And it just means that we're going to have that much more magic recovery to stay in the fight. And once this dips below, say the fight's really going out of control and I'm having to spam heals and I'm in a fight for my life, now all of a sudden my stamina recovery jumps up by another 450, and so we're going to hit those crazy numbers. The 2k over 2k magic recovery, we're near 2k health recovery, and our stamina recovery is at 2k, and this build is just able to stay in the fight. So anyways, that's everything for you guys. I'm really excited to keep this build updated for you, and I'm going to keep this. I've leveled probably at this point 50 or 60 tunes in Battlegrounds or in CP. I get them to CP and then I delete them and do the process again. And I like the journey, but I also am looking for that it factor. And the it factor is a particular play style matched with a particular gear set or a gear loadout, and this build has that it factor. I've had experiences leveling him already that have been extremely impressive, and I'm really excited for his journey through CP, and I want to get BG footage out there for you. I have like 5 projects on my plate right now, but stay tuned for that. And also stay tuned here afterwards for a tribute video from the Garrow Studios covering Stanley. Anyways, Excelsior.
Which character is, would you say, is closest to your own character and personality?
I don't know. I'd like to think that I'm an amalgam of all of those characters. All of their best features are probably based on me.
Spider-Man?
I gave all our characters a lot of thought balloons.
You know, Spidey, I've always wanted to experience real web slinging.
And I've always wanted to be appreciated as a real hero. It seems you've made me into one. Thanks.
It gave such another dimension to our characters, because if you know what somebody is thinking, you really know the person.
It's really great knowing they're out there, you know? Someone's watching over us.
Well, Stan, we all have to grow up sometime, I suppose. Even us characters of fiction.
You know, I guess one person can make a difference.
I think maybe I'm proudest of the fact that I meet so many people who say to me, "Gee, Stan, I've been reading your things since I was very young." Maybe what I'm doing isn't really unimportant. Maybe entertainment is one of the most important things, because there are so many bad things in the world that if you can entertain somebody for a while, it's a good thing. So I think I'm proudest of the fact that maybe some of the things I've done have entertained people.
Did you see my cameo? Made the movie.
Love seeing you two together again. You always were my favorites. I've got the usual for you. Good to have you back, sir.
Are you Tony Stank? Enough said.
That is hilarious.
Superheroes in New York? Give me a break.
Fairly well, old friend.
I love you all, and my parting word, of course, is EXCELSIOR! Thank you.